All right, so out of nowhere last night, we got a dev talk from Zenless Zone Zero talking about some of the upcoming plans that they have for the 2.0 update, which definitely makes me think that 1.7 is going to be the last, 1.x update, and we'll be moving into 2.0 for right around the anniversary time. Now, today, I just want to break down all the information that we got there today to talk about everything we know about version 2.0 here, because as we've seen, if you've played other Hoyo Gacha games, version 2.0 is a very big deal because it ends up having a lot of optimizations, a lot of new stuff, and just generally a good time for the player base. Now, I know other Hoyo games, there have been things that have gone downhill after version 2.0, but Zenless Zone Zero's dev team has been not only have they been really good with getting changes to happen that we're actually asking for, but also they are very good in being transparent with us, which I think is something that we haven't seen at this level in any of the other Hoyo games. So definitely hoping for the best there, but let's go right into all of the things they talked about here and just kind of giving my thoughts on them as well. So they said that the main, story type stuff for the 2.0 and 2.x updates is going to be in a new region in Waifei Peninsula. I'm not going to go over all the story and lore kind of stuff that they didn't talk about too much, not like Honkai Star Rail, we'll just spend 15 minutes on a single topic, but I'm sure we'll all see more of that once we get to the 2.0 live stream and we get more info about that in the future. But this area does have a different vibe than the main sort of 6th Street area that we're used to, and they are making the areas larger and more seamless to not have as much loading screens or transition time between areas, which is a pretty good thing, just so you can be more immersed in gameplay. They are also going to have a new daily system for your daily training, and I think that's really good just to match the vibe of the sort of temple that we're going to be at in the Waifei Peninsula. So instead of managing the video store for our dailies, it's going to be about managing the temple, and there's going to be replacements for the things we do, like the lottery ticket scratch off and the coffee shop. There's going to be replacements for those kinds of things, but we'll find out more about that in 2.0. They also confirmed that during the 2.x updates, there's going to be continuations of a few of the main plot points of the overarching story. And this is a big issue I've had with some of the other Hoyo games, because it kind of feels like they get very locked into the specific area they're in, as opposed to focusing on the overarching story. But three main things that they said for the overarching story of Zenless: they said that they're going to go a bit more into what Sarah's really planning behind the scenes, and she's the one who was responsible for the whole Bringer incident in the 1.4 story. We're going to get more lore about the old capital and what happened, which is a big thing for the protagonists, and then we're also going to know more secrets about the protagonists as well, which should be interesting to get lore drops while also introducing new places, new characters, and as I'll talk about later on, also keeping older characters relevant as well. Then they also teased several new characters for the 2.x updates. The big one that they were showing is Yi Xuan, and she looks really cool. She has these kind of orangey eyes, she has wings, so that's going to be a cool character. Just off of appearance alone, I probably want to pull for her, but we'll see what she ends up doing when strip marketing happens for her. And I think it's possible that based on how long the patches usually last, because they're usually 6 weeks, I do think that it's possible for Yi Xuan to be an anniversary character, or the anniversary character for the 1-year anniversary, since we are approaching it. And if we look at how long it's going to take, for us to get to 2.0, the second half character for 2.0 launches a week before the anniversary date of July 4th. So it is possible for that, unless they, change up how long 1.7 is and try to make 2.1 the anniversary. We'll see what they do. But Yi Xuan does look to be the super hype character for the 2.x update so far. Then besides her, we also have them confirming that there's going to be more characters from the Old Bull squad, which is awesome. That's the Soldier 11 and Trigger faction. So seeing more characters from there is definitely cool. Trigger has definitely been a really cool addition, regardless of me not pulling for her. So we do love to see that. And then also they confirmed that the previously announced Angels of Delusion, the Idol faction, they are going to be releasing during the 2.x updates as well. So a lot of cool characters to look forward to. I'm excited to see more about them, meet them in the story, see drip marketing, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully, we'll be in for some good stuff there. They also did announce that they're releasing a teaser trailer for the 2.x update on April 13th. And this is interesting that they announced this separately from like the 1.7 or to like 2.0 live stream, because for Honkai Star Rail and Genshin Impact, I believe what they did is that they gave us a little tiny preview of like 2.0 at the end of the previous version's live stream. So I think for both of them was a 1.6. At the end of their 1.6 live stream, they had a small segment talking about 2.0, and I know Star Rail did that for 3.0 as well. At the end of the 2.7 live stream, they had a little sneak peek about Emporius. So them having a separate teaser is going to be pretty cool. Not sure if I'll do a reaction to it because of when it's dropping, but it should have some pretty cool stuff in there for sure. Next up, they talked about some gameplay optimizations and updates. They're going to make it so that we don't have to go back to the video store whenever we want to enter the holo for any kind of quest, which is really nice just because it just lowers the amount of time it takes for us to actually get into quests and actually playing the game. They also said, and this is probably like the biggest optimization for me, is that they're going to be reworking the map. Because right now, to fast travel, you have to scroll through horizontally all these places, and with them adding more and more zones over the past few updates, it's kind of a lot. And if they're going to add like a big main area now for 2.0, that would kind of suck to still be like that. So they're going to make it more of like an actual map where you can like select where you're going, which should make it a lot easier to find the exact spots where you need to go. And they're also going to add a mini map as well, which is going to make it a lot better to explore the individual areas themselves. So I definitely do like that. They also said for the main story and the special episodes, they're going to try to have them be merged and be a lot more cohesive, because they kind of felt like some of the special episodes, I mean, especially I think the Astriel one is the biggest offender of this. They felt like more filler as opposed to being connected to the overall story. So I think them having a stronger connection between the two is just going to be really good for players. And they also did confirm that we are going to be getting steady main story updates every version. And I think if Zenless sticks to their current main story structure, with the main story quests per patch being around 4-ish hours, and then the character and special episode stories end up being like 2 hours-ish, I think that's going to be pretty good because they're not making them overly long, so that they can focus on the quality for each one. And Zenless, especially with 1.6, for sure, with the main story. I haven't done the Soldier Zero Ambi or the Trigger quest yet, which I'm going to get to hopefully soon. But at least for the main story, they've been knocking it out of the park with that. So I'm definitely glad about that. And then they also announced that Zenless Zone Zero is going to be coming to more platforms. We know that there's an Xbox live stream on the 11th, which I am going to react to on my Twitch, twitch.tv/681shadow with 2 W's. And that should be pretty cool. And I think when they say coming to other platforms, the only other platform I can think of would be the Switch 2. But of course, we'll see what happens with that. As we don't have the most information about the Switch 2, we just have that one kind of direct that they did. But that's really everything for the gameplay optimizations and updates. Next up, they talked about combat itself. And really the main thing, or the main two things for combat is that, for one, they want to make it so that non-DPS characters can have a bit more spotlight, because they do kind of understand that with a team-based game, you end up relying on your DPS a lot. But they also do want non-DPS characters to have a similar amount of value to make it feel like an actual team game and not just a like single character kind of game, which is a nice thing for the way Zenless is. So they are gonna introduce ways for characters, like when you switch them out, they still are contributing in some kind of way when you're not actively using them, but you can still kind of see them on the field, and it's not going to impact what you're doing with your active character, which I think is interesting. I'll see how they implement that. But then they also said that they want to add some new enemy mechanics. They don't really have anything solidified that they talked about, just like some minor ideas, but we'll see what they end up doing once they announce them. But I think more mechanics and more varied mechanics is a very good thing to just make the player have to think more and actually have some level of strategy when fighting certain enemies. Then the second to last main point that they talked about are for future events. So they do want to focus on 3 main areas with this. They want to focus on existing modes that have been introduced through events. The big one for me being the Fall Guys event. So hopefully adding new mini games to that and just kind of rejuvenating it for the future, and hopefully making it permanently available to But actually, no, I think the current one is permanently available. But adding it to other quests and just making it like more of like a main kind of thing that they update every so often could be good. Secondly, they announced that they have some new types of events planned with new types of gameplay. One of the examples they gave was like fighting with a giant bamboo, kind of like a mecha kind of thing, which would be pretty cool. Hopefully they do something with that. That would be cool. But then thirdly, they also confirmed that there are going to be some events that are more slow paced for players who don't want like a super intense experience all the time, so they can just sit back and relax and just do more like casual things in the game, which is a good thing to cater to more casual fans, because they are going to be a good amount of your player base, especially with how Hoyo's character marketing is. But then the last thing they talked about, which I'm honestly pretty excited about, is old characters. And I'm excited about this because of the way that they announced this in comparison to how they announced the Honkai Star Rail old character buffs, which if you keep up with my Star Rail stuff and you watch my video about the whole Caster's Global Passive thing, I said in that video that if they mess up the old character buffs in Star Rail, then there's a pretty solid chance I start playing less or even just straight up quit the game. Because old character buffs and keeping them relevant, I think, is something that's very important if a gacha game wants to have a lot of longevity. And the dev here for the dev talk, they said that they want characters in Zenless ZZero to be fairly future-proof, which is really good. And they even had a specific quote that I took out. He said, showcasing a character's charm isn't just about mindlessly beefing up their stats, which is an amazing thing, but also a jab at Honkai Star Rail because of HP inflation. But that right there is proof, as well as them just talking about it explicitly right after, that they plan to rework older characters' skills and effects over time to make them better, not just for where the game is right now, but also they're going to consider the old characters' compatibility with future releases as well. So we really shouldn't have a situation where that many characters are like falling off completely, especially if these sort of reworks and old character buffs end up being a continual thing that Zenless is doing. Not to where like, oh, this one character got buffed, they won't get buffed for like years. Like if Zenless continues to like see the situation of their game and see what characters can benefit the most people by being buffed or reworked, then I think that that's going to be a really good system. But of course, we'll see when we have more information. I don't know if they'll announce that for the 2.0 live stream, but we'll see what happens there. I will let them cook though with the way Zenless has done stuff before. And the last thing for old characters is that they do want to continue giving older characters the spotlight in newer story content, kind of like what they've done with Lycon in the 1.6 story, where he is really relevant despite being a base game 1.0 character. So that is cool. I do hope that they do that with more of the characters, especially ones that didn't have as much screen time, or had screen time with a group of people and didn't really get to have as much like individual development. But we'll see what happens there. But that is everything they talked about. I'm really excited for the upcoming 2.0 and also 1.7. They haven't announced the 1.7 live stream yet, which is interesting. But we'll see about that. Regardless, let me know what you all think in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed and want to see more content from me, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, make sure to check out the Twitch as well for when I do react to the Xbox stream for Zenless ZZero. But yeah, with that, everyone, I will see you all next time.